CPEs. If you haven't signed in, please do that. Also, if you RSVP, you'll have a name tag, and we brought enough box lunch meals for folks that RSVP. The folks aren't here by about 6:30. Didn't RSVP, they'll be up for grabs. We're also doing a raffle. I think probably already heard about that. The donations are going to the chapter challenge. So we'll get into more of those details about what all that is shortly.
Hey, Matt.
Yeah, we got the big ones tonight. Yeah. 18 left. That's right.
Did you sign the sheet? Oh, please sign it. Thanks.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you know, the name of the product is Zoom. You think it would allow you to zoom in? There's not much I can do about that.
And by the way, for unless you're a student, probably I know this, but for anybody that try to get online, the Wi-Fi is here. The SSID is ECPI.net, go to CONTED, and then ECPI 1, 2, and it's lowercase.
Anybody got an extra mustard?
I just threw it away if you want to take it out of the
Probably.
Oh, hey, how you doing?
Thank you.
I'm not sure they got. I have to submit to ISC, and they have to process them. It takes some weeks.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, yes. I'd already.
How positive was that?
Damn, I got
See that? Yeah, only. I was up in DC this morning. I was up in DC this morning.
Okay.
All right, we'll go ahead and get started. If you haven't signed in, please come up and sign in. If you're a certified member, you can get your CPEs. If you have other certifications outside of ISC Square, we do have a certificate up here that you can take with you and use for those submittals as proof of attendance of this event. Just remember, as an ISC Square chapter member, we will self-submit your attendance for each event that you attend so that you don't have to worry about that. If not, you'll have to submit them, and that form can be used for that. I did want to make everyone aware of our challenge, our fundraiser raffle. We have the Lenovo Jedi Challenge device. It's a virtual reality device. And for each dollar donation that you make to the chapter that we're going to be using for the chapter scholarship challenge, you'll get a ticket for that raffle. And we'll be selling those tickets or collecting those tickets this month as well as next month. You do not have to be present to win. You'll on the back of the ticket, it has a place for you to write your name and your phone number, and we'll contact you if you are the winner of that, as well as we'll post that on the chapter website. If you are a registered member with the chapter when you signed in, you should have gotten a blue ticket. We will be drawing for a $25 Amazon gift card at the end of the chapter meeting tonight. And as a reminder, each month we try to give away something for the members. It's also an enticement for you to join. And it's $75 for certified and non-certified regular members. And if you're a student, you can join the chapter for $25 for the year. Chris is going to come up and talk a little bit about our scholarship challenge and how that's progressing and a little bit of details about that.
All right. So how many of you guys, this is your first chapter meeting, this is the first time you've been to one of our meetings? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So half and half. So I'm going to go through this very quickly. I'll be here until probably long after you guys are gone. So come see me if you want more detail. But for the folks that have heard this probably every month for the last 3 years, they're probably tired of hearing it. One of the things that our chapter's mission is to foster the next generation of cybersecurity professionals. And the way that we do that is by coming to places like ECTI and hosting our meetings here where the students are. So we bring industry professionals to where students that are learning are, and make that networking connectivity available for you guys to meet each other. It helps everybody, the folks that are learning, to networking with people that are doing it, for mentorships, next career opportunities, jobs, etc. But it also helps the folks that are doing the industry professionals that have been doing this for a while, helps them as far as finding new talent as well. So another way that we do that, so that's one of the ways that we reach out to the next generation and that we foster the cybersecurity profession. But another way that we do that is through scholarships. So in order to participate in the scholarship challenge, we work with the Center for Cyber Safety and Education, which is a nonprofit organization under ISC Squared. ISC Squared, of course, is our chapter. It's the governing body for certifications like the CISSP. The nonprofit organization, the Center for Cyber Safety and Education, does a chapter challenge every year. And this will be the 3rd year in a row that our chapter has, fourth year in a row, that our chapter, chapter for that long, that we have been participating in it. So last year we set a challenge of, I think it was $7,500.
Yep.
We came short of that challenge, but we did raise over $5,000. We ended up giving away 4 $1,000 scholarships. We still have one more that we're working on a creative way to give that to a deserving individual. Right now we are in our fundraising period, which ends at the end of August. So our goal this year is to raise $10,000. It looks like we're only at about 12% of our goal. We do have 2 companies, Segra, who is Segra and Northrop Grumman, Segra used to be Lumos Networks. They have now since changed to Segra. They have a pledge that they are working with our the center in order to bring us up from our current balance, as is Northrop Grumman. I found out today, just before I came in here, that Northrop Grumman, despite the fact that they have left the general vicinity, they're no longer in this area. They are still going to continue providing towards the challenge. So within the next 3 to 4 weeks, because they're doing it through their corporate citizenship program. The corporate citizenship program requires that they get an invoice from the center, and that's what I call the Center for Cyber Safety and Education. It's just easier to say the center. So we'll be at just under $5,000 once we've gotten those 2 donations. So we're looking for other companies that are interested in donating so that we can get us past the $10,000 mark by the end of next month. The next step for that, though, is after we've collected funds and after we've gotten to our goal, which I'm optimistic we will, even though $10,000 is a pretty advantageous goal for the year, but I think we'll get there. And then in October, what happens is we open up the registration for students that are in high school, juniors and seniors. So it's not, unfortunately, it's something that only high school juniors and seniors in the Richmond area that our chapter is chartered to participate are eligible to obtain. So if you know a high school junior or senior that's interested in doing cybersecurity, we highly recommend that in October, they go out to our website. It'll all be right here under the Chapter Scholarship Challenge with instructions on how they would request to be a candidate for the scholarship funds. To date, we've given out over $12,000 in scholarships, which I think is incredible. It's also, on the other end of that, it's a little discouraging to know that our chapter, out of all of the ISC Squared chapters in the entire world, ours is the only chapter that's participating in this particular challenge.
Last year and this year.
For the last 2 years in a row. So our chapter is, if you'll scroll down just a little bit, being recognized at ISC Squared Congress this year. So I'll be going down to Congress in October to talk about how our chapter is doing things in its community, including the chapter challenge. We are participating in Safe and Secure Online. If you're interested in what that program is, we have a link that's dedicated to that. I won't bore everybody that's been to a bunch of these meetings with it, but if you're interested in that, Michael Stapleton has presented a lot of those Safe and Secure Online presentations. They go from kids around 6 to 96, right?
Yep.
So it's for the entire range of ages. The younger presentations are Garfield based, so it's for a much younger crowd, but they have for parents, seniors, etc. So with that, any questions about the challenge? Any questions about the chapter? All right, James, you want to? One last thing, if you didn't know, it should say it on here. We, in addition to doing the in-person training, we also host a Zoom meeting for each of our member meetings. So this is being broadcast live across Michael's laptop here for Zoom. So if you wouldn't mind, if you can't make it to a meeting, you're more than welcome to attend via Zoom. I ask that you include your ISC Squared or any other, if you are certified through another organization, let us know and you can get a certificate of attendance. But if you attend through Zoom, you can also get your CPEs as well.
I would like to just welcome Tyson Martin from Lumbar Liquidators. He's the Chief Information Security Officer. He's come tonight to give us a presentation on what we're doing better, better ways to block and tackle the core security things. And Tyson, I appreciate you. We have his bio and information up here. He's recently joined us from Vermont area. So he's new to the Richmond area. So if we can just welcome Tyson.
Yeah, I just signed a lease on a townhouse very close to here, and moved in last night. So everybody knows how that whole move-in thing is. And I woke up this morning and didn't have water in my apartment, so I'm unshaven and unshowered, right? So you're seeing me at my best.
You still look good.
Thank you. So these thoughts really are still firming up. So what you're seeing from me, if I look back, if I was to watch the Zoom and critique myself, I probably would be critical, right? So I've got a good friend who owns a podcasting network. His name is David Spark, and he has several different podcasts, but two are with CISOs in the industry. One's name is Mike Johnson. This was the CISO for Lyft, he just left, and another one is Alan Alford, who was just left from Mitel. Right? I think us as CISOs are either, a lot of us have just come into a job, like myself, or just left a job, right? There's always change, right? And so this is a topic that that David and I have been talking about. We may spin up an additional podcast that he'll produce and everything, and he'll prepare kind of all the show notes. We'll look at LinkedIn and so forth and Twitter for input. But his other two podcasts, one is about a CISO's relationship with vendors, right? Or just anybody in the security world's relationship with vendors. Who here, just by show of hands, works in the security world today? Okay. Who's learning about security stuff right now? Okay, so everybody else. So as soon as somebody finds out that you are that you're in the security space, they want to sell you something, right? There's lots of bells, lots of whistles, lots of blinking lights. So that's a very on-point topic, how a vendor should work together to target somebody like ourselves, right? And the other one is called Defense in Depth. Two cool podcasts if you haven't listened to them. From a student's perspective, all day, every day we're working usually, or we're in our cars and commuting, or we're with, doing stuff in our personal lives. But podcasts, so audiobooks and reading books and podcasts give you the ability to listen to other people's perspectives, even though you're just focusing on your own life and the things that are important. Okay? So the topic of the podcast that we're probably going to be doing together is one based on basically how we can transform our cultures to have cybersecurity be a part of the culture of an organization, right? So if you take the best cybersecurity professional in the world and you put them into an environment, they may be able to by themselves do magical things. But if they left, guess what would happen? Those magical things would reverse pretty quickly, right? If we weren't thinking of the cultural component. So is there a clicker, or let me just kind of scratch my ear? All right, so I want to talk about, yes.
Just one thing, so the camera is right there in front of Michael.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's probably.
You're good.
Let me come over here then. I want her there. All right. So I want to talk about what is culture. So we'll read. So this definition says culture is the character and personality of your organization. It is what makes your business unique. And it is the sum of its values, traditions, beliefs, interactions, behaviors, and attitudes. That was somebody else's definition. So you just search for culture in general. That's not going to be great because it's going to talk about religion and stuff like that. But if we talk about organizational culture, I feel like this is a good example of what that is. Okay. So tonight, my background is very technical, but what we're going to be talking about tonight will not be very technical. Okay. This is the softer side of cybersecurity. Okay. And this university, for example, or many universities are going to teach a lot about the technical stuff, but it's this side of things that I see is missing the most in organizations and in people that are coming out of universities, right? If you look at the CISSP exam, it's going to refer a lot to culture. It's going to looking to a board to get top-down buy-in, right? That kind of thing. But so us in our roles is we're going to need to start to influence at our level and downward and our level and upward, right? We need to figure out how to do that, okay? So, I kind of, there's going to be parts of this where I want people to interact because I don't have enough content to, I think, make it 45 minutes worthwhile. It's just going to be me preaching, right? Has anybody here seen any problems with culture prohibiting them from being successful in accomplishing anything with technology or cybersecurity? Yeah. Anybody share my sharing? Yes.
So just yesterday, I was going through, I'm new at where I am, been there for two and a half months. And so I'm going through a process, and everything has to be defined, especially in the financial industry, because there's a lot of stuff going on above my level. But so I'm entering in data on the incident into the ticket. And then I have to enter it in the bottom of the ticket. And it's not a big deal. It takes an extra 20 seconds, but I have a lot of tickets to make. And I asked the guy training me, I said, so why do we put it in at the bottom? This is redundant. And you know what the answer was? This is how we've always done it.
Yeah.
So that sounds exactly like
It's a culture change.
And you'll have major business processes that are built off of that, right? You'll have the core of your organization that you'll represent will be based off of those things, and that could be from the largest organizations on the planet Earth to the smallest organizations, right? This problem is not individual to an area, and I think the bigger the organization becomes, the more difficult a cultural transformation is, right? You can have unlimited resources and money, but more people have more that they need to do, and they have more focuses. And frankly, their focus should not be on cybersecurity, right? I mean, we have a job to do, but we still need to understand when we get into a car, we have a certain responsibility when we get onto the road, right? So what are those bare minimums that people need to have? All right, we flip that forward for me. Okay. So what I propose is that our organizations, by doing cybersecurity as part of our cultures, we can be more unique, and more unique means we have business differentiators, right? And this, and the sum of that uniqueness, the sum of our values and our traditions and our beliefs and our interactions and our behaviors and our attitudes, will add to the benefit of our organization because we're more secure. Okay. So some examples. There are organizations that if you manufacture something, right, if it's software or it's a physical good, if you wanted to provide those services or those goods to the government, you then are a third party to the government, right? And by you being more secure, you have more value, and you can say if you've standardized, you've formalized, what you would bring to the organization is the ability to then prove that how that security it brings safety to the people that you're doing business for. Okay. Another thing would be in my business. So Angela here as well works at Lumbar Liquidators, and anything I'm saying is not representing Lumbar Liquidators, is representing my beliefs, right? So that you'll hear that a lot, people saying that, but it's very, very key. This does not mean that some of these practices we don't, we want a good, healthy culture within our organization. But if you think about it, when you manufacture flooring, you want it to be safe, right? You manufacture, let's say it was the manufacturing of a car, right? So I would imagine Tesla would want their vehicles to be safe, right? And that's why they're so heavily focused on cybersecurity as an organization. All right, so let's flip it forward one more. Okay, so I'm going to jump right in and kind of walk you through how I feel we can start to change our culture. So has anybody heard of the book called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? Okay, by Stephen Covey. So this is actually red. It doesn't show up very well in here. I've highlighted some things that are in red, and I'll point them out because you can't see it. But there's going to be a lot, like in the world of what we do, if we can become well-rounded and learn about things that have, so this book has sold like 21 million copies in like 17 different languages, and it's sold 1.4 million audiobook copies. I think there's lots of things to glean from what cross-business people have learned from. So this would be one that I think it was published in 1985, I believe, and it's still timely today. right? So this is habit number 5. So there's a lot of other habits before it, and some of those build on what I'm going to talk about. So I'm going to challenge you to first seek to understand when you come into an organization, and then be understood. This is a principle that will work in a relationship with a partner. It will work in probably parenting, right? It will work in interactions with other people on your own teams that think like you already, or people in other teams that think completely different than you, whatever that department may be, right? And I'm going to walk you through how you can accomplish this, right? So skip me forward another slide. Okay. So I'm going to say so within your organization, that's the right place to start. Okay. Who's heard of this book before? It's called Start With Why by a guy named Simon Sinek. Okay. Another cool book. Have you heard of it before? Very cool book. For me, it's super inspirational. Okay. This is another thing. And so he calls this thing called the golden circle. Okay. And what he poses is that organizations think that they're in business to make money or to please shareholders. But if you look at why an organization starts its business, it's for a why. Okay. And that's the purpose of doing business. So Microsoft's vision to begin with was to have a computer in everybody's home, right? When Bill Gates, what's that? Every desktop. There you go. Perfect. Has that come true? I would say we have more than that, right? We have a PC at it's always attached to us, right? It's very different. So there's a company called Tom's Shoes, right? Has anybody heard of them before? What's their why? So it's buy a pair, give a pair, right? So they want shoes on everybody's feet, effectively, was their goal. Okay, kind of cool for a shoe company, right? Some people do things to change the world. Some people do. There's several different reasons. Your organization ultimately has a why. Okay, and then organizations that have a strong why then have a how, and that how is like the goals. How do they accomplish doing what they set out to do, right? And then they have the what. What do they do to accomplish those goals? Okay. And that's the what is what do you do ultimately? So if somebody says I make computers, well, no, that's not the purpose of Microsoft. It was a PC on every desktop, right? What's that? Well, there's a computer right here that says a Windows logo on it. That's the to be so.
Very good.
I see it right in front of me. Yes. They made a piece of software, right? So
well, not really. They bought a piece of software.
Correct, and they stole the design of a mouse and so forth. So that's a little deeper, right? And we're talking about Bill Gates territory. So Apple had a lot of companies that are very strong in our minds. To begin with, when they started, they had a very strong why. And what I'm proposing is that to transform a culture, we have to understand the culture. We have to understand what the culture is, what the feeling of the culture is. If I try to, and I'll talk about this more, if I try to implement the cybersecurity strategy of the NSA, which fails, right? We see this from breaches that's happened at the NSA, right? But if we applied that same control over a company like Lumbar Liquidators, would that be successful? No, it wouldn't be successful. It'd be a waste of resources that we're protecting the wrong thing. Does that mean we don't take it seriously? We definitely take it seriously. Okay. So I'm going to challenge you to find the why of your organization. Okay, number one, if you don't understand the why, you are going to try to protect it in the wrong way. Okay, and then the how is the next piece. Let's move forward on the slides. Okay, so I didn't go to the why yet. It's the next slide. But the way you find out the why is you learn about the people that are setting the vision for your organization. So as you walk into Lumbar Liquidators, into our offices, you see two plaques. I mean, two big like frame pictures, and it walks through our mission statement. That mission statement, a bunch of people will have a mission statement, and then it's our corporate goals for 2019. Okay, so who in your organization's set? It's cheating right up here behind you, but outside of the CEO, the CFO, the chief financial officer, the chief executive officer, the chief operating officer, the board, and then if there's people that own the company, who in your organization set the corporate goals? What's that?
The board.
The board. So the board says yes to those. They might not be down in the weeds. I think the board usually won't set the goals, but it will challenge somebody and say, those goals aren't good enough. They're not high enough. Or yes, we approve those goals. But who else in your organizations set goals? I would imagine in like a technology company, a CTO might set goals, right? I'm not in that. I'm in a retail company. So any other people, and so I want you to think about this. Who's setting the goals? I propose that I can't set my goals unless I know what my organization's goals are so that I can support those goals with my goals, right? That's what I'm trying to get at. So think as you, no matter what level you're at, no matter what your tasks are, if your tasks, what you're doing is not supporting your corporate goals, I would imagine you're wasting your time and energy. You need to talk with your leader. You need to let them know, hey, I see these goals. I see this greater. I'm going to get this stuff done still. But can I be a part of something that supports the greater goals of the organization? Let's move it forward. Okay. That skipped way far ahead. Okay. I'm going to guess it was Google Drive that did it on me. Okay, so let's go here. So if we want to, actually, that's good. Let's go back to the one where I had the first. Okay, so another place that you can go to see what your corporate goals is in your 10K. Who's heard of a 10K before? Okay, publicly traded companies have to report at least once a year a 10K, and it's a report of their business. So then their shareholders can have visibility into what the company is doing, okay? I call it a cheat sheet, right? For me, if I'm going to interview with somebody, I'm going to invest in a company, this is where I go, okay? Guess what's posted in this document? Their goals.
Yeah.
Really, their why. If they don't have a clear why, you'll see it, and then their hows are in this document, and then their whats are here, okay? So every organization, and so this is through the securities, U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. So if they're a publicly traded company, that's where it would be. And that's called a 10K. This is the format here. And this just came off the top of Lumbar's 10K. Just took a quick screenshot off the top of it. All right, let's go to the next slide. So in reading a 10K, you can see that it gives you an overview of the business, some risk factors. Guess what you guys are in the business of doing? Managing risk, right? So it can be you can do a logistical risk. We talk about third-party vendor management. That's logistical risk, right? So you can understand their appetite for risk, right? And so when somebody comes in, when you say, I make this suggestion, and they say, why would I do that? You'd say, look at the 10K. 10K says this. We say we see these as risks, and then this is how we hope to mitigate those. Okay, pretty cool. You're using an official document that's publicly available. Everybody's nervous when they submit this document to the SEC. Every single company on the planet, right? So as you get down through the document, right, you can see so this section of business and risk factors, item 1 and item 1A, reading that and understanding that will be very, very important for you in that strategy. So let's go move forward. All right. Now we have mission statements. So I already talked about this with Tom's. So this is the mission statement right off of Lumbar's website. Okay. So let's dig into this. So they want to inspire, from inspiration to installation, our passion is to make beautiful flooring possible and easy for all. Okay. So what does that say for me? We like trust, right? We're building our brand, and we're working to make that brand strong, right? So you can get into more talk of we can dig into them more, but we want to think like our customers, we want to act like owners, we want to succeed as a team, we expect continuous improvement, and we act with integrity. Okay? I incorporate my goals and what I'm going to accomplish, and then my justification for money into tying into those 5 things. Guess what I'm going to look like? 1, I'm either going to look like a butt kisser, right? Or 2, I'm going to look like I get what our organization's objectives are, where we're going to head. Okay? So as you become a part of the culture, then you're not an outcast, right? You're not sitting. We have a curve of about 30 years behind the technology world in general, right? So when the first CIOs first came into play and that became a normal field, they've got 30 years on me, right? So we need to gain respect. We need to start to understand how to speak the language of the business and then connect what we see as important, the fire alarms that go off in our heads when we see risk, into saying, hey, if this happens and that happened, if we make this decision, we decide to build our house on top of a foundation of a swamp, right? This is what's going to happen, right? We've seen this before. We've been through this fire drift. So seeking to understand, history is very important to understand, and then also the vision of what they want to do in the future. So if you want to build a house and you're okay with it blowing away in a hurricane, right? But you want to make sure you can hook up to the back of your truck, a mobile home is probably the right thing for you, right? If you want to have something that you can pass down from generation to generation, that's probably not the right thing, right? Just understand, right? So then you can make a justification for the proper investment. If you want the Taj Mahal, but you're paying for a mobile home, there's a mixture between the two. You got to figure out how to come to that. Okay. All right. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. So now is where the rubber hits the road. There are people that take those corporate goals and make them into reality. They're held accountable to doing those things that I just showed you on the last slide in our organization. None of those things say becoming world-class cybersecurity organization at Lumbar Liquidators. None of them say that right now. Does that mean that I will not have a business goal in the future that's mine, that I own, and I'm accountable for? It does not. That would be my intention. That would be my goal. Okay? But what I need to do between now and then is I need to make sure the people that are accountable, so this isn't the CEO or the CFO or the COO or the board. These are the people that those people tell that they need to get it done. Okay? So what I challenge is you to build a close relationship with those people. So when they're rolling forward in a goal or an objective, they're doing so with you being there as an advisor to them. And they're not making poor security decisions, that then you're going to have to clean. Basically, you then become the undertaker of all the dead bodies for the rest of the time that the organization is in business. Because these projects, they stick around for a long time. They become the core of the business. We talked about this already, right? Okay, so we want to find out who has ownership of each of these goals, and that's ownership and accountability, and then who they're accountable to. Okay. And you want to build a relationship with each of those people. So usually some organizations will have 5 top goals. Some will have 50,000 top goals, right? So I've got a friend that's in Walmart, and Walmart's one of those companies that just have so many goals, right? That's their prerogative. So build a relationship. I'm going to talk about how to build relationships. So I'm going to give you some tips on how to build relationships. And I think we all do it organically. And for me, like, I'm okay at building relationships. I don't really like, I'm not a socialite, right? I'm not a social butterfly. I like to talk. I like to do business. I like to build. My way to build relationships and trust with people is to show them that I care, and when they need something, for me to be there, right? And to not put on the fancy icing on the cake. Just give me a cake, right? I want something sweet. And then find out how they're being measured on their success. And then lastly, lend a hand in helping them succeed. And using your connections with others and your cybersecurity sense to shine. And your technology sense. These people will not understand that to build up a platform, you have to understand you have to store the data somewhere. They don't understand that you then have to back up the data somewhere. They don't understand that there needs to be 2 of the systems for it to be highly available, right? They don't understand that for people to get to it from the outside world, there needs to be a firewall, right? These kind of things. Be there to help them and provide for them and say, as you go down this road, here are some things that we need to make sure we think about. And we need to think about from a timing perspective. And then you will know people across the aisle, across the technology organization, from a vendor perspective, so forth and so on, that you can help them and make sure you bring in. All right, let's go to the next slide.
Okay, question.
Yes, sir.
Do you report to a CIO?
I do.
Okay.
Yep.
And you're new with the job,
I
right?
am, yeah.
Okay. I had some questions, but since you're new, I'll just let it go for now.
No, I'd be willing to answer, probably off of the Zoom, though.
Well,
No, I just, go ahead, sir.
According to the CIO, do you find that there's a conflict of interest between IT and security?
So interesting thing, I just came from an my answer is definitely yes, there's a conflict. I think there'll always be a conflict. The question would be, in the organization that you're in, is there somebody better to report to? Are they at the point in where they're at as an organization to support you any better than a CIO would? My relationship with my CIO is, I love the guy, right? I've only known him for 4 months, but I'm super proud to be able to work together with him. And I feel like, you know, he's been in the organization longer. He's older than me, right, as well. So I feel like it's sensei, student kind of relationship, navigating through the culture of the organization. So it's good. Can it be bad? Of course, definitely. So I think you have to navigate it a different way. In my last job, I started as the CISO, I reported the CIO, and then I built trust, and my CIO got promoted. He actually he became the chief experience officer. So he led digital, he led creative, and he led marketing. And then I was promoted to be the CIO, and I still kept the CISO responsibility. I think for me, being the CIO and the CISO is more difficult than just being a CISO reporting to a CIO, because you really are trying to hold yourself accountable. And that's just, you really feel like multiple personalities going on in your brain. And that's naturally what will happen. As you transform this culture, you'll see it more and more. So a little under the covers at Lumbar, I've now inherited, I lead all infrastructure of IT and all operations, and then help desk as well. Kind of weird, right? It's different. We got to do what we got to do. The great thing is now I can say this cultural barriers that used to be between these different people, right? Guess what? You have a new boss, and we're not going to have those barriers, right? Doesn't mean I can change it overnight, but that means you got to work better. So if I create a run book, or I bring in a tool, or where maybe those things are they all benefit one another, right? And I can say, how do we incorporate these things into one another? Okay? So this is how I recommend you start building relationships with these people, and any people in general, in a business sense, in personal, I guess. But I like being face-to-face with somebody when I'm starting to build a relationship, if possible. There's going to be some organizations and in relationships where this isn't possible. Okay? You want to ask them to tell you about the history of the organization and their experience. Okay? If you can learn about how things went good and how things went bad, repeat the things and amplify the things that went good, and then avoid the things that went bad. That's very powerful. And then people instantaneously, when you ask them to tell them about the past, there's like an added measure of trust right away, right? You're building that trust. And then there's some people, if you don't understand the past, and you come in with a suggestion that's counter to what they've learned from the past, even though if it worked well for you, guess what? You then become a pariah, right? You have lots and lots and lots of problems. So this is a question. Who's read the book, The Phoenix Project? All right. Have you read it?
I've heard
Most of it. So canon reading. If this room hasn't read it, read it tomorrow. My team's going to be reading it, right? The entire team's going to be reading it. So there's a scene in the book, or a section. There's not a film. So there's a part of the book where the CISO and the CIO sit down together with the CFO, right? They basically act like they don't know him. And then two questions asked: what does a good day look like for you, and what does a bad day look like for you, right? Two very good questions. And usually, if IT's done something stupid, or IT security's done something stupid, and you're as the security person asking that question to another person, that allows you to say, I want to learn from that. I want to make sure I avoid that impact on your life, and then take that into consideration. I understand how I can cause you pain, and I understand how I can bring you joy, right? It's a very interesting perspective. And then what is success, and how do they measure success? And then what their fears are, and then what's the best experience they've had with technology? What's the worst experience they've had with technology? What are some current problems that they have that you can help them fix, right? So if their hard drive is full on their computer and they can't write anything, or if the boot up time is slow, guess what? You can help to fix that problem, right? Not necessarily do it, but help them to get past that, and then that associates you being able to be there to solve a problem for them. Okay? And then finding out from them who they have that are strong partners in the organization. Okay? This is kind of the thing of, you don't just come to somebody and say, hey, will you vote for me? You say, who do you recommend that I go to also, asking for that referral, okay? And then you start to understand where political ties are, where strengths are. So when it is time to then help this person accomplish their objectives, you can go to somebody that you know they already have a strong partnership with. I thought of this quote. It says, "Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care." I did a quick Google search from that, and according to the Theodore Roosevelt Center, a lot of people attribute that to Theodore Roosevelt. It was not said by him. They don't know who it was. It just wasn't said by Theodore Roosevelt. So I thought it was a cool thing. I really believe in that adage. So this gives you the opportunity for key people, and then so as you build up the trust, guess what happens when it does come time for you to have a project that's important? Then you have somebody else that knows that you care about them, so you can leverage that political capital or cash that in, right? And I'm not giving the structure to say use these and this is the only thing to do. I'm just saying these are things that I found to be useful, and if I find something that works good, I'm going to try. I like people who like me. I like to have good relationships with people. What didn't go well last time, I'm not going to repeat it again, right? If I go around saying your mom's stupid or your kid's ugly, right, and I find that doesn't work, probably don't want to keep repeating it, right? So we got to. I think thinking about these things is important. And as you move within an organization, doesn't become any less important as you either move up or you in a management position, or you move up in a technical position, or you just stay lateral. This is very, very, very important. If you care about your job, you care about the people that you're working with, you care about the objectives of the organization. And frankly, I think that's personally why I do what I do, is I care about these things, right? And I challenge you to care about them more and to think about them more and put energy. All right, let's go to the next slide. All right. So as you build that relationship with those people, then you have to interact with people that have to help that person get those things accomplished. And these are for sure not all of the different verticals. But I mean, if you think underneath sales, if you have an organization and they have sales or they have a human resources department, how many people are underneath each one of those departments? A lot. It's a lot to navigate who to go to, what do you need to go to them for, let alone understanding ahead of time when you have a project, all the different things that need to be done, right? Just in IT alone, just in technology alone. And within my organization, I've got somebody that worries about our e-commerce experience, right? I've got somebody that worries about their applications, right? Two different people. But guess what? If this e-commerce platform or this back office application has a problem, it's not just their team members that are resolving it. It could be my team members, right? It's a problem with the database. Who's there to help them, right? We've got database administrators. And if you talk about business intelligence, we're going to worry about business intelligence items, right? So you and your new best friend will fail on your own. You will not accomplish it just with two people. Even if you have, the most important person in the organization, you need to connect with others and convert them to this cause. You need to help them understand that why, and then the how, and why it's as important as everything else, or more important than everything else they're doing. Because organizations might have you could have 5 clear goals, but I guarantee you, if you sat down with employees, they would have 50 other goals that they're heading towards, that their boss has told them to do, that are not in alignment with those 5 goals. Happens all the time. It is a pain in the butt. And if organizations that don't understand their why, that a lot of times what happens is other people think the why is something else, and they're running towards something else that makes them feel excited, right? And makes them happy. Us as security professionals, guess what we run towards? Security, right? Human resources, guess what they run towards? Human resources, finance, so forth and so on. They're going to run towards what they geek out about. Everybody is a geek in their own thing. Just some of us wear more flamboyant clothing when we do it, right? Okay. So be proactive and research who needs to be involved now and in the future. So your proactivity. So I say to somebody, your lack of planning does not necessitate my emergency, right? I will help you now, but we will have a post, incident, follow-up for this, so you understand that this just cannot repeat, right? Over and over and over and over again. Okay? Get these people support early, and so they have time to plan. Back to that, if somebody does it to me, and then I just go around doing it all the time, that's kind of, it's not very fair. Okay? use your new relationship building skills on a broader audience. Okay? So it's about you and then about other people. Now there are going to be organizations, especially the bigger organizations. So I used to be with the Home Depot, and there were definitely elements where I could not talk to other departments. Just did work, right? It was very monolithic. Broke us up into different buildings, right? So forth and so on. Okay. All right, let's move on. How am I doing on time? You're good. All right, cool. Okay, so let me give you an example of cultural change within one department. There is one department that I believe has done a huge amount of cultural change, and it's led by one part of the department. I don't feel like it's the right way to do the cultural change. I feel like it's been effective and it's still changing. I'm very fascinated by it. So let's go to the next slide. Who's heard of waterfall model from a development perspective, SDLC perspective? Cool. So when we went, waterfall was one method. What do we see nowadays? Agile. Okay. Is that a change? Is that a change in the culture? Okay. So walk me through what waterfall, what the change between waterfall and agile is like.
So it also depends on the industry that you
Correct.
are in.
So let's universalize it though.
You're going to find agile more in software development than you would, let's say, in construction. Waterfall model is rigid. Okay, you go step by step. They have milestones to be met before you move to the next phase. There is a tendency for scope creep in waterfall. You're only allowed to go back one level. You can't cycle back if you don't provide what the customer wants at the end of the project. There's a defined start and end date, and at the end of the project, if the customer is not satisfied, you're basically screwed.
Yeah, you can't proceed without the
Agile
dependencies.
is more of iteration, where you give them. Yeah, it's delivery cycle where you give them bits and pieces, but it's more geared for change than anything else. They accept change. Agile focuses on change because they know things will change according to the requirements from the customer.
Super. So this is, when I refer to it, I'm talking, so number one, these two things are kind of like religions to people, right? So that's number one. So this would be like, what's the difference between Christianity and Catholicism, right? That kind of thing. So I don't want to go too deep into it. The key here is we have lots of change that's happening within an IT department, and it's led by usually a development team, right? And ultimately what they want to do is they want to ship software faster, would be one of the goals. And it's a very big change in either how frequently code is committed, right? And then how it's managed, okay?
Yeah, well, your waterfall model is more of a series style structure, where that one's more parallel.
Okay, perfect. All right, let's go. So we're gonna build on the complexity of this. This is just, I'm bringing you through a change. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, who's heard of Agile? Who's heard of DevOps? Okay, so DevOps builds off of Agile, right? So as you can see via here, so you have development start and development end. And Agile brings you through to that, but does not necessarily connect the testing piece and then the operations piece, making that run on hardware, getting all the parts and pieces behind the scenes to make it work. So more transformation, right, of a culture within an organization. Who's leading this? It's really development, right? And in some organizations that I've seen, the organizations that pioneered this were organizations that were pretty greenfield and were like the Etsy's of the world, right? Lots of organizations, and then others came along and started to do DevOps down the road. Okay, so there's transformation, there's change. I've never seen an organization where ops was like, let's do this DevOps thing, right? It is dev that's saying let's do this DevOps thing, and because operations is in the way, right? We got this agile thing going. Now we need to make the entire stream agile, so we'll call that DevOps. Is that a fair summary of kind of what we're doing there? Okay. All right, so let's move forward. Okay. So now we have DevSecOps. Okay, so this is very common. So I know lots of people in the DevSecOps world. This is for me very, very fascinating. Okay, I incorporated a zombie into our presentation, so now security teams are being asked to join in as well. Okay, some people would say if DevOps is done right, you don't need DevSecOps. Okay, but so what you see here is as you have the DevOps, so you're going from build, test, plan, code, build, test, release, deploy, operate, and monitor. The entire thing is encapsulated with a security layer around it. So that would be, you have a secure software repo. The tools that you would use is called a continuous integration, continuous deployment pipeline. That would have security checks that are built into it to look for vulnerable code that's being used, right?
Early.
Go ahead.
Early.
Early, exactly, right? And then if an operating system needs to be updated on a machine or you need to do patching, you're doing that. You're so frequently deploying that you're incorporating those patches into this environment here in the dev, and then it gets promoted into production through the operations pipeline. Okay, so it's pretty cool. We're seeing it. Does this change the organization though? The culture of the organization?
Yeah.
Does it change the greater organization though? I propose it doesn't. I mean, it makes it so they don't have to worry about it. But the CEO is not any more secure or any smarter from a cybersecurity perspective or takes more ownership necessarily because this is in place or finance isn't, right? That kind of thing. They'd have to buy into it. I agree. So a lot of organizations that are brute forcing this, they're saying we're setting up a new platform. We're going to incorporate this in behind the scenes, and it never gets they don't get the proper credit for it. It would be like, it'd be like spinning up an e-commerce website over here and as a technology team and not telling anybody, the money just drops into the bank account, right? It's benefiting the company. We never had an e-commerce experience. That's happened in some organizations, right? And then it becomes 50% of your revenue annually. And they're spending $5 a year to keep it running, right? Because it's running off of excess cycles in your DR environment or whatever it may be. That kind of stuff happens, right? All day long. All right, let's keep going on. Okay, this is a new one, no ops. Okay, I was at an event a couple days ago. I was talking about, I had a DevSecOps shirt on I was wearing. And the guy's like, DevSecOps, I like no ops, right? And it kind of was like an FU to operations and security, right? And so I had a conversation, but this is it. So the concept that an IT environment can become so automated and abstract from the underlying infrastructure that there is no need for a dedicated team to manage software or operations in-house, right? So you'll see no ops when a lot of people are in the cloud. Let's say they're in GCP, right? Or AWS. So
We know what companies do.
what's that?
We know what companies do.
Okay. So there are companies that do this, right? So somebody had to set it up properly to begin with, though, right? Somebody had to get them their I's dotted and their T's crossed. And if you don't put the energy up front, it's just as much work and more work than DevSecOps is to begin with. And then you have to have somebody then holding them accountable. Because I don't know about anybody else, but organizations will very commonly say, I'm doing this, I want to do this, but I'm going to do it else over here. And they're going to throw everything else out, right? So there are companies like GitHub, right? I don't think they have an operations team, right? They're kind of following this model. They're far ahead though, right? They're a bunch of, much larger company. All right. So this is the transformation we're seeing. So I'm gonna, if the URL is not registered, no SecOps, right? I'm gonna register that because that will be the next thing, right? Really. And there'll be a conference chain about it. People will start wearing shirts, no SecOps. I'd love to say no dev, right? We just have AI that develops stuff all day long, right?
Well, wouldn't that be most organizations nowadays, no SecOps?
I guess so. Yeah. All right, let's, okay, so I think we need a broader goal, complete organizational cultural change, right? We already talked about this. All right, let's go on. All right, so I suggest if we take the things that we talked about earlier by getting buy-in and building relationships, and we combine that together with the people that own the projects, we start to build trust there and make ourselves not be the boogeyman, but be a member of the team. And then the other people, we build relationships there and help them with their goals. Then I think it's really important that we have a blueprint of what our cybersecurity strategy is going to look like. Most people, when they start a business, don't have a cybersecurity strategy. And I see it as like building a house without a blueprint. All of our homes, more likely than not, had a blueprint before they were built, right? How much was your house when you built it? Probably under, let's say you're all millionaires, right? So your house was $10 million. If your house was $50,000 house or $10 million house, it definitely had plans, right? And those plans had to be reviewed, right? Had to go through zoning, right? Had to be inspected, right? And that's a much smaller risk than our organizations are, right? So having a blueprint is very, very important. And I'll walk you through what our blueprints will be. So that's supposed to say your board. As you can see, this is one of the last slides I made, and I didn't read through it before I put it up. So your blueprint is a framework that your board and executive management team can rally around and hold the organization accountable to, okay? And then also it'd be for your developers as they go no ops, right? And they want to develop. You'd say, here's our framework. You want to go no ops, you have to do it this way. And if you don't, here are the consequences, and here are the controls to see when you don't do that, right? And this is the jail you sit in when you don't do it. Okay. So who here uses a cybersecurity framework in their organizations? Okay. Some names of cybersecurity frameworks you use?
Yes.
Yes.
Risk management framework.
Risk management. Okay. What's that?
State highway.
Yes, state highway.
DOD 570.
Perfect.
ISO 27002.
Okay. Perfect. All right. Why did your companies adopt those frameworks? No, I don't need to.
DOD said so.
DoD said so.
He said so.
Okay. So they've learned that when people don't do this, they wander around like sheep. They build houses that fall down on top of people, right? In architecture, are there principles and are there doctrines? There are. You don't build there are certain shapes you don't use to build a bridge with or the bridge collapse, right? In the world of technology, do we have those? We go to architectural school and learn thou shalt not and what thou shalt do. Not really, right? Every organization I've walked into, I've been the CISO now of 3 organizations, okay? Every organization I've come into, there's no architecture. There's no book that says, you might have policies and procedures, but the likelihood that those are all being followed by is 1,000% no.
Even so, I worked for a DOD contract. I worked for, so also like government data centers throughout the DOD. Well, everyone, their interpretation is different.
Yeah.
Of the same document, interpretation is different.
And so if you don't have an organization with to me, looks like an endless budget, right? Endless resources. How does everybody else do it and do it effectively as well, right? So what we have to do is we need to figure out what our blueprints are, and then we need to communicate why that's important that we live by that, and then get the support of our team, our organization in general around that. So when we have to come in and say, it's not me that's saying no, it's saying this framework we've chosen says thou shalt do X, Y, and Z, and that will help us to avoid, whatever it may be, right? We could be Equifax, or we could be Target, or we could be Home Depot, or we could be whatever, right? All things that if we were following by those things, we would have missed those inclement weather. All right, let's move forward. Okay. So your framework. So up here you can see, so I propose that your framework that you use is then enforced, that there are laws that are applicable to your organization that point to that framework as something. So then you can say to your board, the reason why we should choose this, right? NIST is a great example. ISO is a great example. The reason why we said this is being trusted by the DoD. This is being trusted by, whatever it may be, okay? And you want to make sure it's applicable to you, because they could say, well, that's great, it's for the DoD, but we're not the DoD, right? As well. So you have to, that'll come further. So here's an example. In California, who's heard of the CCPA, the California Consumer Privacy Act? Okay, I won't say it's a privacy act. We have the General Data Protection Regulation, which is a privacy act as well. This is one that's in California. Okay, it's already signed into law, so it's a law. It doesn't take effect enforcement-wise until I think it was January, and now it's been pushed forward like March or April because they made some amendments. Okay, so the Attorney General in California, Kamala Harris, you've probably heard of her in the news quite a bit. They do a California data breach report, 2016. They said the following: the 20 controls in the Center for Internet Security's critical security controls identify a minimum level of information security that all organizations that collect or maintain personal information should meet. The failure to implement all the controls that apply to an organization's environment constitutes a lack of responsible security. So I would say if you look at a framework, CIS is probably here. You should be able to jump over this. NIST, right, and ISO are a little bit higher, right? And it's going to depend on where you are in the maturity level in those frameworks as well, right? So what I did to our board was I said, didn't do to them. That sounds like it was an experiment, right? I'm an alien, but what I did was I drew these parallels. I said, we worry about CCPA where this is important to us. This is a relevant idea to our minds. We should say every system in our environment at least should abide by these 20 critical security features. Okay, that should be the bare minimum, right? Thou shalt be this tall to ride this ride, right? And that will be our standard. And then what happens is they talk about it here. They talk about we talk about due care and due diligence, something that's on CISSP from a certification perspective. At least when I was studying for it, I didn't want to know the difference. Okay, what's that? Still is. Perfect. So violation of duty. So that's from their breach report, and this here is from the CCPA, 198, 150. It says violation of duty to implement and maintain reasonable security procedures and practices appropriate to the nature of the information to protect the personal information may institute a civil action for any of the following. So as you can see, there's verbiage here. That's exactly the same verbiage that's been defined there of what it means. And then we refer to the CIS top 20 controls. So for me, what that says is, Your Honor, right? This is if I feel like it's I'm in a court, a courtroom TV show. Your Honor, this says this, and then this says this. These reinforce one another, right? Okay. All right, let's move forward. So I think it's very important that your framework should map to your compliance obligations as well. So for me, I'm a retailer, so PCI is applicable to me. Is PCI a law? No. Right? Is PCI regulation? No. It's a standard. Okay? It's something that I can do and I can choose not to abide by. If I do so, it is affecting my contractual relationship with the payment card industry. Right? It's their data security standard. Okay? It's not something that I choose to take lightly. It's something that we choose to follow. Right? But because I have this standard, and that standard is then referenced, right, in the PCI DSS, as is NIST, as is ISO, right? It's something that I know I'm enforcing here, and it can directly map. I think it's crosswalk is what it's referred to from a CISSP perspective, right? So it's a parallel mapping where I can say I follow by these things, and then computation, right? Take my little R2 unit, and it will tell me where and how it connects to one of the 12 domains within PCI DSS. Okay. So there's a lot of different compliance obligations, right? There's a lot of legal ones, and I couldn't think of them quickly enough and pull up enough icons to throw on this. Pictures to throw. We have HIPAA, we have GDPR, we have CCPA. Name your favorite compliance obligation, right? You need to have something that maps to that, right? SIPR, I would imagine, has some standards from a compliance perspective. Just a few. And CIS probably wouldn't be enough. Right, for that scenario. All right, let's move forward. Okay. And then you want to choose a framework that matches your culture. We already talked about this. So ECPI here, I hope this is the right logo. And it's not another ECPI out there, but the frameworks for those two organizations, I think, should be different, right? And each culture should doesn't mean we want to framework du jour. Right? So if you look, it's hard to find that many frameworks really. You can find more risk management frameworks than you can cybersecurity frameworks. I mean, I can probably count a dozen risk management frameworks, but probably on less than 1.5 hands, I can, cybersecurity frameworks. Would you understand the framework, and then how it applies, to what degree it applies to what resources is important as well, right? All right, so let's keep on. Your framework may change in the future. Okay, so we talked about all these. So there's CIS. I don't think this is a framework, but some people would say it's a framework. You do a search for a framework. It's a standard. And then you have ISO and you have NIST. So why would your framework change?
Due to new vulnerabilities and risks.
Different risks.
The business may change.
Yes, business may change. Your business might say, Tyson, well, I want us to be ISO. We're going to be doing business international, right? That kind of a thing. And ISO is an international standard. It's something you pay for, right? You have to pay to get the standard, and then and NIST is actually free, right? So NIST is written by a company, by MITRE and NIST, right? Which is, I guess, it's a private organization, but it's led by the federal government. And they set the standards for all federal bodies, and then states have taken on that as well. And they have a risk management framework, and then they have a cybersecurity framework, and they have lots and lots and lots of standards, right? And you could sit up here all day and say 27001, 27002, 863, right, so forth and so on. And they're very rich documents, and they walk granularly through how do you handle crypto, right? What does key management look like, right? And all of these guys are doing more and more and more from a, PCI is big on point-to-point encryption, right? Everybody's coming out with an Internet of Things version. They're talking about ones for the cloud, right? So forth and so on. So, yes, sir.
Just a point, a lot of these standards will give you the minimum requirements. That's not to say that your organization can't go above and beyond.
Correct. Yep. And then a lot of these will have tools. You can pay for some, and there's some that are free that allow you to, this is a combination of, do you have a policy? Is it written? Is it formally approved? Is it enforced? Is it automated, right? And that will you can start to map out with each section and subsection how you're doing from your maturity process. And then you can say, from there, and I'll get into this in a little bit, you can set a goal to the organization, with the board, this is where I want to be. This is where my peers are from the maturity level, and this is where we're at, right? And this is easier to have as a conversation when you're new than you've been at the helm for 45 years and you've just been, sitting at your desk eating Cheetos, right? But all right, let's keep going. Okay. So here's CIS, just visibility. This is what we're using at the moment. We feel like this is where we need to be. And as you can see, it breaks into 3 sections. These are basic controls. Everybody should be doing it in every system. Very, very, very basic. So one is an inventory and control of hardware assets. Every organization I've been at has a very hard time knowing exactly what devices are on their network at all times, and then knowing if they should be there. Okay? When I was at an organization that had over 463,000 Windows devices. Okay, and we had endpoint protection on them, and I asked, how do we know that this is all of them, right? How would your organizations know it's all of them? A lot of them don't know, right? That's a very applicable question right now. So this is why I'm talking about being back to basics and culture. Organizations need to 100% know. I would say, in my opinion, if I was on a board, when I sit on a board, we'll put it that way, that will be one of my first things. Every quarter or whatever, every year will be my pop quiz. Give me a list of your inventory, right? Of hardware and software. What happened, and how much would you bet? I mean, I would ask that CISO or that CIO, how much would you bet that this inventory is 100% accurate? I will guarantee you that, right? So very dangerous. How can you protect with all the advanced features on the planet Earth from a security perspective if you don't know what you have on the network? You can't do it, right? So it says inventory and control of hardware assets, inventory and control of software assets. We have one more that I think is missing in this, and that's inventory and control of users. Okay, so we parallel that in. So if we know what software and what hardware and then what users using it, we think that's very, very, very powerful.
Wouldn't that be your Active Directory?
It would be the Active Directory.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just
It
saying, I
One
mean,
of the things you do-
most organizations do, I mean, obviously.
Every I see it, that's when you have one, dump the off tables out of routers.
I know that. I've got an IP address management solution. I do it every day, 50 times a day.
Well,
Problem is there's lots of noise.
I've read a couple of applications that literally, and that's what we did with it. Take every IP address.
So what do you do with that information though?
You put it into a database and you pull out Active Directory, pull from PeopleSoft, if that's what you come to do.
So you're starting to correlate there. So we're doing something very similar to that, but it's not just those things. So we take basically all systems that have a piece of hardware or a piece of software that report into it, and then a user. We bring it into one central dashboard. We correlate all the.
Isn't that the basic function of ITEL and the CMDB?
So CMDB, that would be useful, yeah. But if that system doesn't see it,
Not many organizations have true CMDB.
so if the CMDB doesn't have it, how do you know it doesn't have it? That would be my question.
Exactly.
Responding back to your ping, how do you know it's there? Then you got to start posting.
Correct.
You can only
Bring up
pay
all these
if
other
the
tools.
device is up and running.
Correct.
Yeah, but the device does not have to respond back.
So this is not an easy problem, and that is, we're talking already with, I don't want us to solve this because I mean.
No, that's we live this stuff.
So, but we all see this problem, and these are the first two, okay? CIS says 85% of all risk that's out in the world right now, if organizations just did these top 6, we'd reduce 85% of all risk. This is a big deal.
You throw the users in there, that close it even more.
All right, so then you have continuous vulnerability management. What is that doing? It's saying, hey, you have the information on this, then you're ensuring that you know what the vulnerabilities are and you're remediating them, right?
In a timely manner.
In a timely manner. Okay. Would Equifax happen if that was the case?
Nope.
No. Would Home Depot have happened? Would Target have happened? Would Marriott have happened? No. Okay. These are not easy, right? So we have, when I go to RSA, there's just an overload of tools. And what I'm going to show you, I'm not going to show you it, but I'm going to say there's a new tool in the market right now that I figured that we're finding, right, is solving this problem for us. Okay, and this is exciting to me. Okay, and then controlled use of administrative privileges, secure configuration for hardware, software on mobile devices, laptops, workstations, and servers. So it's basically saying you have this stuff and you're starting to ramp down, letting it do what it needs to do, and then maintenance, monitoring, and analysis of audit logs. Okay?
Yeah.
So those are things that you're doing from a basic perspective, and then you have a more foundational. Okay? And then you get into things that are done. This is not done by the users, but this is done from an organizational perspective. Okay? All right, so let's go forward one more slide. I don't have that many left, so I don't know how much time, but they're a nonprofit organization. CIS is free, which is pretty cool. If you're starting from, if you feel like you're not doing great on those top 6 and you want to improve, you don't want to spend any money, right? You want to test it. You could even kind of do it guerrilla marketing style, right, behind the scenes. They have this thing called the CSAT. It's the CIS self-assessment tool, okay? And so as you can see here, there's the critical controls, right, 1 through 20. And you click on this one and it would drop down and it would show all the different subsections in this critical control 1. This is 100% free. Then you can go in and start to say, record your progress. Am I doing, as my policy, we talked about this, I have an informal policy, I have no policy, I have a written policy, I have a formally approved policy. The policy is applied, but it's in the manual fashion. The policy is automated, right? And then it applies to all or it applies to some. And it starts to give, as you can see your progress from a maturity perspective and how it goes, and you can compare your industry average. And then there's a spider web graph here that then would say, let's say you were 100% on CIS control 1, but 0% on 20, you'd see 1 spiking, right, to 100, and then all the rest would be at the amount that you're at. Yes, sir.
From the Zoom, there's a question that asks, how does budget affect those types of frameworks?
So if you go into it in the way that I proposed, align yourself with the objectives of the business, and then get to the board and show to them, this is the blueprint of what we're going to build, right? And this is why it's respected. This is why it's respected from a federal perspective. This is why it's, all those different elements. then what you can do is you can say, to get to this maturity in that framework, we're going to need this, 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 and this, and it's going to cost this much money from a capital investment and this much money from an operational perspective. And then you can have the backing. And if they come back and say, no, we only want to give you 50%, then we can say, okay, we can only do, it doesn't scale linearly either, right? So if you want to do this much, and you want to give me this much money for it, if you want to do this much, it doesn't mean you're only going to give me half as much money, right? Because the front end, it doesn't scale linearly, right? I might need 3/4 of that money to accomplish 1/2 of the work, right? So it then becomes, you need to plan for it long term. You need to start to have that as the discussion. But for me, what I find is that can then become very powerful in that discussion, and we can say, we show, right, that progress. Right? Show the progress, then we could say, okay, if you want, let's say, how much do we want to invest into validating what we said was accomplished was actually accomplished, and I'm going not just tooling with numbers, we could pay for an audit, right? And they could see that progress, and we could be on the same tool. That auditor could check us periodically through the year, right, whatever it may be, to keep us honest. But then we would say, we showed, we made good on what we said we were going to do. At some point, you're not going to ever get to 100% on these things, right? Because it's going to be too costly, right? I mean, you can say my maturity level for out of 100 for, you know, whatever the thing is, it needs to be a 50, right? But from that, you can then see and you can track that progress. So I see frameworks and funding as being like a match made in heaven. So, yes, sir.
On that note, you're I'm a retired CISO, so that's yeah, every year put in for I need this much to accomplish this. Of course, the CFO or the RM guy will always say, well, we can't give you that, we'll give you that instead. So yes, you outline up what you can do with that and what you can't, and you draw up a little memo for the commanding general or the CEO to sign saying, you assume these risks are for them. And then you'll get a visit from the chief of staff. We'll ask, what's going on?
And that's what it is it becomes a risk discussion, right? Should I spend $1,000 to remediate a risk that has a risk value of $100? No.
Well, that's another thing. In the here on these things, is it discussed? I don't know about the CIS thing. Is it discussed in there about risk analysis?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
So they
are.
So this partners with a CRM tool that's free as well. It's a CIS risk management tool, and they parallel with one another. So I'm not too like I have no skin in this game with these guys. I just see it as something that you can play with. You can set up an account for free, right? And you can see it without having to pay for Archer, right? Or something like that. This is something that's available to begin with for an organization. No matter where if you get dropped into an organization and it was helpless, you've got a good thing you can play with, right? Let's go to the next slide. So as you can see, then it says here are the different areas, right? That's the CIS1, and then we go to 20. You can see where you're at, right, from a maturity perspective. So it's got a bunch of stuff in the tool, and then you can see what percentage of your things have policies completed that are controls 1 through 5 are implemented, all controls implemented, all controls automated, all controls responded, and then your maturity rating. So there's lots of great visibility into tools like this. You can pay for tools. I wanted to show you something that was free, that I could just Google search, so I didn't have to show you my dashboards and stuff like that. Right? All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so here's summary. I'm done. How much time do we have? You want me to take for questions?
We don't have as much. Normally we have a lot of after business, but this time we just have a few things.
Okay. So I'll just read through. So I think it's really important that we seek to understand and build passion for supporting the why of our organizations and the how they are setting up to accomplish it. So back to that book, Start With Why, right? Simon Sinek, worth a read. It's not super long. It's worth an Audible credit to listen to and have in your library. Build a relationship with those accountable for the how, and with those that will support the accomplishment of it. and learn about the framework or introduce your organization to a framework that it will use to accomplish the security culture transformation. Guide your organization by speaking in terms that are applicable to business partners. I didn't say this much. As you learn more about risk management, as you start to quantify risk and qualify risk, learn how to speak about it in a way that's applicable to a CFO and a CEO and a COO. More likely than not, they are going to be approving your money, right? You want, not that you want to get away from reporting to a CIO, but if we can do this and we can be seen as not needing a Rosetta Stone in between us and a CEO, hence the CIO, then we'll start to see more of us reporting in that structure. Okay. If you haven't heard of it, there's something called the Fair Risk Management Platform, invented by a guy named Jack Jones. Really, really, really cool dude. I like to have mentors, and he's one of my mentors. And so he created his own risk management framework. And so what he says is most risk frameworks are like, here's the parallel he draws. You drive down the road, our risk management today would say the speed limit is low, medium, and high. That's what it would be like on our roads today. Have you ever driven somewhere where it said low, medium, high for a speed limit? And like if you take an expert race car driver, what is low going to mean to them? Not the same thing as to an old grandma, right? So his methodology is he takes risk and he quantifies the risk. He doesn't do a qualitative risk assessment. He does a quantified risk assessment. So he basically would say, here's the risk, here's the scenario, right, that we put together. And he has the ability to then calculate how much that risk actually would cost, right? So give it a number, and then rank it amongst other things that have numbers as well. 100% worth learning about. If you just watch a YouTube video on it for 6 minutes, you'll be like, why are other people not doing this way? Isn't this just the way it should be done? And it's not, right? So with that, then you can come in and that methodology teaches you how to speak with the business, to relate things on, from their perspective. Okay. Track your cybersecurity framework evolution in a manner where your executive leadership and all teams in the organization can see your progress. And I put all teams, I don't think that's ever going to happen. But ultimately what I'm saying is I don't think our progress in our cybersecurity framework should be something that should be a secret. Okay. And I think it's very important that we communicate with others and we show them, here's our score, here's what we've done to get it that way. Being your partner and being that you're responsible for cybersecurity as well as I am, just because I have a security title does not mean that I'm the only one that's responsible for it. Just like you're supposed to flush the toilet when you go to the bathroom, that does not make you a janitor, right? So with that, having that transparency, so where if you get the right permission, and you might not be in the right place, but starting to allow people to understand where risk is, why the risk levels are where they are, and why we have to. We don't want to be there to say no. We would be there to say, here's our formal process. Here's the big picture, and this is where you affect that big picture if you make this decision that you're making. And if you make that decision, I need to get you to write on this piece of paper that you have an approval, and then it goes all the way up to the top of the leadership in this organization for this risk that you're accepting on behalf of this organization. And I'll be fine with it. You do it, that's fine with me. But if somebody exploits that risk, then guess who's being held accountable, right? It's not going to be me. So I am done with, I'm not going to put myself into the position of being, the scapegoat for somebody else's bad decisions. A lot of time, what happens is I don't necessarily want the authority in the organization. I also don't want the accountability to be my own, right? So I want us to understand that the risks that are being taken with the conscious decision of the organization. So I know you guys asked questions while I was chatting, and I really appreciate that. It helped me to feel like I was not just talking to myself. And this is a really important topic to me. I think this is something that merits more discussion. It needs to be, from a podcast perspective, having a CFO come on and talk, or a COO come on and talk, or chief marketing officer come on and talk. I feel like if we can start this discussion in the ether, right? And get people to start to think about this, I think it then becomes more of a reality. What questions do you have? I think, that I'd love to hear kind of as you guys interact with one another and get your thoughts.
So you're sharing your presentation from a CISO standpoint, trying to get those who are currently CISOs or maybe considering it, just things to consider in regards to how to help an organization, I guess, survive and improve with information security. Because oftentimes, like, I understand some of the stuff that you're sharing, and it depends on who you're sharing the information with. If you're just like in the engineering trenches, you're thinking, okay, that's all fine and dandy, but the fun is with, the routers, the switches, the security controls, and things like that. So leave information like you're sharing with us up to at a CISO level. And depending on how big businesses you do get to see these things in action, but if it's a small business, you don't necessarily get to see stuff like this in action. So I'm just wondering, with what you're sharing with us, if it was to, I guess, help some of us towards considering participating in CISO like activities.
Yeah. So my thought process, I thought the same exact thing. I said to myself, is this applicable to the audience? And I guess for me, when I was an engineer, cybersecurity engineer, this is the way my brain naturally thought. Was as I interact with other, I'm never going to just, maybe somebody will, but very few people are ever going to just sit in the dark, right, with a hoodie on. And there are plenty of hackers that do this, I guess, but even the hackers need to be this cultural thing. It's just become a big enterprise, right? But very few people will just sit sit by themselves and don't interact with anybody, right? So even if it's with your fellow engineers, right, starting to understand them better, understand their perspective, understand their objectives with your management and your leadership. And then I think it's very important that if you have a job and you feel like it's kind of crappy because you don't understand the goals and why you're doing the things that you're doing, having a bigger understanding of the bigger picture is very, very, very important to understand why you do them, right? And then additionally, I just want to inspire people. Some people are happy with where they're at, right? And some of it, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm uncomfortable where I'm at because I got a deeper hole that I need to fill, and I just don't think that's the case. But I like to grow. I like to explore. I like to take on more responsibility. I like to see how I can transform things. And I think all of us can implement these principles in our own way to help the organizations the people we work with, the organizations we're with, and ourselves to do our jobs better. And then to also understand what you need to expect from other people, right? This is a two-way street, right? Like if I'm going to give this much time and this much energy to come from, the bottom of the trenches and come up and think outside of the box this much, when a lot of people aren't doing that also, I'm going to expect my marketing team or my developers or my creative team or whatever to transform what they're doing as well. So like I said, developers are really the only ones that I can see that have gone through a large metamorphosis, right? Finance is finance. It's been doing what it's been doing for a very long time. What I hope to do is, as the people in the trenches that are my team members that I'm passionate about and I care about, as they step up their game and these people see that my team members are shining, that they'll want their team members and themselves to shine as well. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. That's fair. I don't know if it's directly applicable, and you guys could say, don't ever ask that guy to talk again. Wrong audience, right?
I would add that I think the first couple of slides I don't know that everybody would take the time, and hearing it now, maybe folks will, but I don't know that everybody would take the time to go out and see publicly available documents like the 10K, I think it was, there's your risk management right there. What are your risks? So knowing what those are, whether you're in a CISO role or you're in if I'm in a SOC role, here's what my organization considers to be a risk. And I know how my job applies to that greater picture.
So as you're looking for a job, you can look at that 10K and learn a lot.
That's what came to mind when you were talking about that.
Yeah.
Another thing is your CEO and your top leadership of your organization. Guess what else is in that document? Their salaries.
Do they do that for federal agencies?
They don't do it for federal. Nope, there is some, it's publicly traded organization.
Okay.
So I see,
Some companies do it, some corporations go around that. They cap salaries and then follows that.
bonuses are shown in the 10K as well. Total compensation package. So it's if it's a relocation, anything, any penny that they pay them in shares, everything is in the 10K. Everything.
Okay, so on the slide, speak to understand and then to be understood. Tell us your thoughts a bit on that, please.
Yeah.
Well, at the very end, if people don't, how does it go? People don't care until they know how much you care.
So whenever I come into an organization, I'm new. So I obviously know less than I do about their organization, right? But I can also come in and see, I can see dirtiness right away as well, right? So if we just do an SSL lab scan on a website, right, you can see what their score is. Are they using TLS 1.0? What cipher suites are they using that are deprecated, right? I can run an external vulnerability assessment, an ASV scan on the site because it's a website, it's publicly available. I can see what version of Apache or Nginx or IS they're running. And I can tell a lot about their hygiene. But when I first come in, when I'm interviewing, I'm not saying that. When I'm learning about them, they're asking me about me. But from day one when I'm interviewing, I'm there to learn about them. And then I have an agreement together with my leader. And I say, but the first 6 months or so, I'm here to learn. And Angela's probably saying, Tyson, you're tearing things apart or whatever we run, right? But so Angela interviewed for one of our positions, and we talked about her being in the cybersecurity space. I'm interested in it, but I didn't know all that much. And I showed up to the first chapter meeting here, and she was at the event, right? And the great thing was, if I didn't know she was at the event, we'd already offered her the job that same day, right? But it was really great to see somebody being proactive. So back to the seek to understand before you're understood. I think we know so much. We're such experts in what we do. If we come in and we don't seek to understand, we then share our knowledge, but we don't have the perspective of what's around us to then be able to share it in a way where it's as valuable as it could be if we understood the whole picture. Context.
So it's a frustration alleviator, right?
Yeah, it just pisses people off too, right? People just don't like it when you come in and act like a know-it-all.
And it's two-sided because I'll find myself frustrated because you're trying to explain things because in the technology trenches for quite some time you're trying to explain stuff, but people aren't getting it, or they just don't know the things that you know. So all of a sudden you're upset and frustrated. What's the matter with it?
Or they know and it doesn't work in that environment.
Yes. Whereas
So-
if you seek to understand first, then you can then just like.
You can seek to understand, you can learn about their past blunders, and you can then draw a parallel to the past blunder to what you would have helped them to avoid in the future if you understood those past blunders. Right? That's my interpretation of it. That's how I apply it, and that's been useful. And I'm going to continue to try to do better. Right? What I'm learning right now, I will apply 6 months from now to try to improve on it as well.
The mission statement, was it there when you got there? The mission statement shows on the screen?
Mhm.
Because there are sections of that mission statement. Can you bring that back up? The lumber liquidators mission statement, because there's some stuff on the bottom of that that's quite interesting that also leads to the overall success of the company if everybody that.
The core values?
Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
On the bottom, which is we think like our customers, we act like the owners, we succeed as a team, we expect continuous improvement. And we act
Yeah, a
like
lot of
the
companies won't put the core values up like that.
Yeah. And that covered quite a bit of ground, whereas that section, we act like the owners, that helps you with costs. Because oftentimes people just like spend, but they're not spending it like it's their own money. It's like, think like our customers, it's like, okay, are you getting the things out of this that you would want to get out of it if you were buying this yourself? So I'm just wondering, with the core values there, if that was there before you got there, or if that was something that you added, or how that's
That's
impacting.
the screenshot of the page that was published, I don't know how long ago, way before me. So another thing, and I had questions about this because I think some of these can be, I wanted to know when I was interviewing with this company, are these things real, right? Or are they just things we put up that are nice?
Yes, because they sound
Right.
good if you actually live in.
And so what I did was, after my first interview with the CIO, I sent him, an email and said, hey, these are the core values. I need to understand, like, I've been in an organization where the core values are something, but you walk in and it's like, let's just take those and turn them upside down and kick dirt on them, right? Because they just don't mean anything.
Mhm.
And then another thing is it's open to interpretation. This could be a good thing, and this could be a bad thing. We act like owners, right? If everybody thinks they're an owner and that they're the boss and they're going to just do what they want to do because they think it's important, that's really scary. That can be really scary.
Yeah.
Right. And then we think by our customers. Well, to me, I have two sets of customers. I have the people that come to our stores or to our e-commerce site and buy something, but then I have my internal customers, and I want to make sure our people understand that as we interact with one another internally, we're customers of each other as well. Do we think about one another? Do we think about their experience? I don't want to be the only one that's thinking about, if we're just thinking all day long, what is our customer seeing? And we're making a whole bunch of poor decisions behind the back scenes. It's making everybody else's life horrible. That's not what an organization I want to be with, right? And then integrity. How did my boss define integrity, right? My definition of integrity means not signing an attestation of compliance for PCI when we're not really compliant, right? That kind of a thing. Do we really, if we say we do this, do we do it? And then, expect continuous improvement. Okay, so where we are today, if I say I want 1% improvement on what my job responsibility is, am I going to be funded to do that 1% improvement? Right? What level of tolerance do you have in 2019 and 2020 for me to set my goal should be set up to accomplish these things, right? Am I going to be able to succeed in doing that? Is there enough time? Is there enough resources? So there's another quote that I have. I don't remember the author, the person. It is, vision without resources is a hallucination, right?
That's a good one.
And I love it, right? So we need to have resources, no matter what level you're at.
I
If somebody
love that.
says, I have a vision, or you need to come up with a vision, and you say, okay, this is the vision. Do you want to support it and fund it? It's a complete hallucination. And in my opinion, you're in a larger amount of risk because you quantified what you wanted to do. You're not doing due diligence, and you're not doing due care, right? So very important. Yes.
I just want to say that the purpose of a publicly traded company is to increase shareholder wealth. That's kind of their bottom line. And this tells the world how they're going to do that. And basically, as far as publicly traded companies go, I'm sure you have a little bit of pushback for funding, for resourcing. Because it's been my experience that in IT, you're just basically overhead.
You're a cost center, yeah.
Yeah, there is no return on investment on you guys. So, why should we fund you what you think you need?
Yeah,
You ever come across that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going through budgeting stuff right now, right? So it's still early in it. It's July, and it's for 2020, right? If you take the entire picture that we've talked about today and you build off of that and you align with the corporate goals and you say, by not doing this, this is how you'll be less successful in doing these things, how you'll be less successful in protecting your brand and then your shareholder value, then you cannot just come in and say, we need to do this, we need to do this, and we need to do that, and expect them to not be like, but this is the piece where you turn it into, you're showing how you're making a return on the investment, but that is by reducing the risk and aligning with their vision.
Right. When you come up with as a CFO who wants you to time value it and put a net present value on it, all that, it's hard to do in our line of work.
So a new thing that I've started to do, I did it my last position, was I would find places in the organization where there are inefficiencies, and then I would target those areas where there are inefficiencies and partner with these people that I had built a good relationship with and then by that claw back a return on investment, and then take a percentage of that return on investment that we clawed back, that we quantified. We had to show it. And if I said we need to invest this and we'll get this much payback, if I didn't get that much payback, I wouldn't be able to take that risk again. And it was a mid-cycle kind of thing where we would find opportunities. Because when you're in the security world, you're digging in the dirt and you're finding dead bodies, right? And once you find those dead bodies, from a business perspective, there's usually an opportunity to save money or be more profitable. In my last position, we found an opportunity where we could save. There was another retail company. We found an opportunity where we felt like we could take the amount of profit that we made annually in our retail locations across the US and the UK, and we could increase profitability on that earned dollar, the EBITDA, by 33%, right, by implementing this. So that meant for every dollar you sold, you made 33 cents more than you did before. Or excuse me, every dollar you earned, you made 33% more. And in retail stores are not super profitable, brick and mortar, right? That's why I call it Black Fridays, because that when you get out of the red and you get into the black is on that Friday before the holiday. So year round, as you can imagine, that year it was, so we pulled forward, we made the investment, we plowed forward, we accomplished it. And then we took 25% of that EBITDA, that year over year OPEX savings, and we transfused the security department with those funds. Then they started to see that, that's when I got promoted to be CIO, right? You can imagine from there. And then we kept on finding opportunities like that across the business. So if it was, it was a fun thing. So I think there are opportunities as you start to build these relationships. You can dig more out of these relationships than just getting done with that hand. You can find chronic problems that can, let's say your AP department's deficient, or, loses X amount of dollars per year in collections, right? Or your store connectivity between your retail stores, you're spending this much money, right? And you're getting this much from it. Imagine if you could save 66% of that, right? It costs money.
What's surprising what you just said is that they actually gave you money back.
That's what I negotiated. I said, if I'm going to do this, right? If I'm going to do this, this is my team's going above and beyond. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to humbly grovel, right, and ask for it. But we need to fund our ability to improve, so then we can be seen as not just a cost center, but a possible profit center to this business. Flip the narrative that IT security all you do is spend, right? And then we buy that, then together with that quantitative risk assessment model, we started to say, we treated ourselves basically like an insurance policy. We said, we're going to make this investment from just like you would buy insurance, and that's going to buy down our risk. And then we started to negotiate our insurance policies, saying that we mitigated and reduced our risk by this much quantitatively, and then our insurance policies then became cheaper. And our deductibles, or what they call them, retainers, right, or whatever in our corporate insurance then became lower. It became lower, we put in cameras in our retail locations, and active shooter detection, right, or license plate readers, or whatever. We could take our liability insurance and drop the premium for those down. And then from the cyber perspective, we were able to get higher amounts of coverage for a lower price. So just starting to think outside of the normal bubble. I think it's a little bit much for this group, but I think cybersecurity today, if done right, does not need to just be a cost center. It can be a profit center. And then for an organization that's smart, you could say, we're really good at this thing of setting up a retail store with a full technology stack. What would it look like if we started to franchise our business model? Right? Or what would it look like to be able to help other small businesses that sell our flooring, that do the installation, to have a technology stack of their own e-commerce experience? Right? Something we can repeat. It's not something we're doing at Lumbar, but that would be, I'm trying to build relationships with trust. We've been there for 4 months, right? I've got plenty of responsibility right now, but you got to get that idea. Right? So I think we're building this. The reason you're doing this is not just to get you to where you want to be. It is to get us to start to think more like active elements of the business to benefit the business and health. So, okay, now everybody's asleep.
Any other questions?
Yeah, what are those two podcasts?
Where are they?
I'd like to know, yeah, I'd like to know the
Yeah, I can
information.
give you the name again if you want. Yeah. One's called the CISO Vendor Security Relationship Podcast. You can look for David Spark, who's the guy that produces them. And the other one is called Defense in Depth.
Okay.
So there are some great podcasts out there.
Tyson, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Before we get back, as an appreciation for the chapter, we have a challenge coin for you, and we appreciate you coming and presenting this great topic. We enjoyed it. Before I know we kind of ran late, we're getting close on time. If you're a member and you did not get a raffle ticket for the Amazon gift card, you can raise your hand so we can make sure you get those tickets and we can draw for that. Also, again, donation of only $1, you earn a ticket for the Jedi Challenge, and again, that goes toward our scholarship challenge. And please go out to the website and look over that. You know, if each person in the room could give a little, we could get pretty close to our goals for the year of the $10,000.
As far as the Jedi Challenge, I think we sold 10 tickets tonight. They all went to one person, so that person has a lead and an advantage tonight. So,
Got to be in it to win it. Again, there's meals back there.